3 different companies, all over 100 million a year in sales. They're all 3 still in business today, and they're all 3 doing the same or more sales than they were when he was there. So he'd been an amazing CEO, and really has a resume from running network marketing companies. Like, there's maybe only 5 or 6 people in the world that have had the experience that Darren's had. And Scott called Darren and said, I want you to talk to Tony, because I think if you'll talk to him, he'll do this. And Darren said, well, why do you want me to talk to him? And Scott said, well, he hates network marketing. And Darren was like, well, that's the only thing I've done my whole career. Why do you want me to talk to him? And he just said, I think if you talk to him, it can make a difference. Now, what Scott and Tony, neither one knew, was Darren lives in Alpine, Utah, where his kids go to Lone Peak High School. I don't know if you've heard of Lone Peak High School at all in the news, but last year they had the #1 rated high school basketball team in the entire country. Not in the state, but nationwide they were rated #1. But they were #1 for something else, suicide attempts. Last year by Christmas they had 26 attempts. And they say for every one that gets reported, there's 1 to 2 that went unreported. So what's going on in this community is Darren said, look, on my street there are 2 NFL players, 3 NBA players, 2 Olympic gold medalists, and a bunch of people that run some of the biggest companies in Utah and around the world. So he said these kids are growing up with the pressure not to be the best in their class or the best at school. Their parents expect them to be the best in the world with whatever they do, because that's what parents are. And as a result, they're just under this immense amount of pressure, and they're just cracking. And so Darren was actually spending time, him and his wife, volunteering with an organization called Be the Change that was going in and running programs to try and help educate kids on suicide and raise suicide awareness and help them understand what other options they had. And he was literally at a point where he was just struggling and feeling like, you know, I have some money, I have some time, and just praying for some way to make a difference, for some way to use his talents and help some of these kids to make other choices other than suicide. And that's what he was doing when Scott Malone called him and told him this amazing story of Tony Stephan and his family. So they ended up teaming up 2 years ago. Tony gave Q Sciences, which is the name of our company, the exclusive rights to market this product worldwide. He wouldn't sell it to them because he wanted to make sure that they didn't change the formula, because it works, and also that he can't sell it because the government in Canada requires him to stay in business, right? So we have this amazing thing where we have a partnership with True Hope. They can say all kinds of things and make all kinds of claims that we can't make here because our FDA hasn't approved this supplement. But Health Canada has. So I can send you to True Hope's website and you can go read all the things about what this product has done for people and what it's proven to do and be effective at. And so but we have the exclusive licensing rights. So here's the amazing thing. They sell that product online for $79 a month. You can go find it. It's Empower Plus Advanced. When they brought it into network marketing, they lowered the price to $49.95 a month. $59.95 for customers. If you go on an auto ship, it's $49.95 a month. So they lowered the price 40% and give people the opportunity to either get their product for free by referring 3 people, or if people are looking to make some extra money and would like to refer people and earn commissions, then you can do that as well. And so for me and my family, this has been an absolute life-changing product. For the last 2 years, I've never felt better in my life than what I felt the last 2 years in terms of emotional stability. I still get to have ups and downs. I have sad days and I have happy days, which is nice, right? But I'm not just numb to the world. But I don't go into that dark place where I just sit and all I can think about is not wanting to be here anymore. So it's been an absolute life changer for me personally. I've seen wonderful things happen as I've shared this product. And I really just want to tell you one more story and then I'll be done. And that is, I told you at the beginning, the last 6 years I've had the opportunity to travel all over the world working with a network marketing company. It's been very rewarding and very fun. But my mom asked me to call her. She likes to follow where I'm at all the time. And every time I get home, the first thing I have to do is call my mom. Even before I call my wife, I call my mom and say, I'm home. Because she worries, right? She worries nonstop. My wife sleeps, she's fine. My mom, I gotta call her. She won't go to bed until I'm cold. Right? So every time I call my mom for the last 6 years, she's asked me the same thing. Right? She'd say, honey, was it a successful trip? Even if it's 2 in the morning. She'd say, tell me about it. Was it a successful trip? And every time for 6 years, I gave her the same answer. I'd say, Mom, I won't know for a year. Right? Because I could go to Texas and sign up 100 people. But then a month later, maybe the product didn't work for any of them, and so it was really a waste of a trip, right? Or I've had experiences like one trip I made, I went to Las Vegas and one person showed up at the meeting. There was supposed to be 40 or 50 people there and there was only one person. But that one person, they didn't even sign up or buy any product. But we gave him a sample. And 2 weeks later, we didn't even know that night that he had a rare blood condition that there's no treatment for. But 2 weeks later, his blood was perfectly normal. And so I came home feeling like that was a total waste of a meeting, right? But over the next 6 years, because of that one experience, he introduced me to some friends, who introduced me to some friends, and I ended up with over 20,000 distributors in 12 different countries from that one person, right? So I always tell my mom, I tell her the same thing every time, I have no idea. I won't know for a year if today was successful or not. Because at times I felt like it was really worth it and really a successful trip. It ended up being a complete waste. Other times I thought it was a complete waste and ended up being hugely successful over time. So 3 weeks ago I went to Australia. And I love going to Australia. I have some great friends there. And I was coming home from while I was in Australia, I met a man that I met in November. When I first switched to Q Sciences, I made a trip to Australia to meet with a lot of my friends. And I met this guy named Edge. And I wish I had a picture to show you, but for those of you who are interested, I'll show you. Edge is covered from head to toe in tattoos, and not friendly tattoos. Okay, the back of his head, from the top to the bottom, is a skull with red eyes. He's got a black widow right here that's about probably 2-3 inches long. And like skulls on his calf right here, he has tattooed, do I look like a people person? And below it is a skull with blood dripping off it. And above it is a bird carrying an axe in his feet. Like the bird, the guy or something, I don't know. And then it says, do I look like a people person to you? So when I first met Edge, I was like, wow. I'm looking at Rick, my friend who introduced me, going, why? I'm afraid for my life to be with this guy. Why are we talking to him? And Edge, Rick says, Joe, tell Edge your story. So I start telling Edge kind of how I was feeling a couple of years ago and how I got introduced to this product and why I started taking it. And I told him how I'd wake up every morning and all I wanted to do all day was die. And Edge starts like, his eyes are tearing up, right? And I got really afraid because I'm like, I don't know if this guy's going to snap or what's going to happen. But then Rick says, Edge, tell Joe your story. And Edge started telling me how he had been married for like 30 years. And 15 years ago, he got one tattoo and his wife hated it. She was always giving him a hard time about this tattoo. When all the kids got raised, she left him. And for 2 years, he tried to get her to come back to him. And the way it finally ended, she said, I would rather die than live with you for one more day. don't ever talk to me again. And he was just devastated. And he ended up getting very, very depressed and getting suicidal. In the last 3 years, he had 2 real legitimate suicide attempts. Luckily, it wasn't successful at the time. But he's got great kids, great grandkids. And he decided, you know what, I'm going to show my wife, because she hated this tattoo, I'm going to cover myself from head to toe in it, right? And I thought, you're really not punishing her with this little project you're on. But he was dealing with massive depression. He said all day, every day I'd wake up and all I could think about was, how am I going to kill myself today? And he would just plan different ways. And every night when he would go to bed, before he went to bed, he just felt like such a failure because he couldn't even muster up enough courage to kill himself. And he started taking our product 3.5 months ago. And he said from the first day, within hours, he felt a difference. Within a week, the suicidal thoughts totally went away. Within 2 or 3 weeks, he was, the depression was pretty well under control. But he said, you know what's amazing, Joe? Just the last few weeks, I've actually had moments where I would push my granddaughter on a swing at the park, that I would laugh, and I would actually feel happy for the first 15 years. And he said, now it's about half the day I'm actually happy and half the day I'm sad. And he gave me a big old hug, this guy that I was terrified of. Right? He said, listen, please keep doing what you're doing. You're changing lives, you're making a difference. And I probably wouldn't even be here today if I hadn't. So when I landed in Boise from Australia, I called my mom like I do every time. And like every time, she said, well, was it a successful trip, honey? And I thought about it for a minute. And I said, Mom, that was the most successful business trip I've ever had in my entire life. And that's really what working with Q Sciences has been for me. It's not, look, there's a great business opportunity if you're wanting that. And certainly this is what I do for a living. But it's much, much more than about trying to make some money. We really have an opportunity to change lives and make a difference. So if you haven't tried Q96, and some of you might say, well, I'm not bipolar and I'm not suicidal. It's not just for people that are really depressed or suicidal. I have a lot of friends who, when I first started taking it, said, I don't need this, Joe. But 2 or 3 days later, they were calling me saying, wow, this stuff's amazing. It just promotes calm, coping, and clarity. Those are the main things. So it helps you cope with life better, it helps you feel more calm, and mental clarity and mental alertness, it promotes in a great way. So if you haven't tried the product, I would just really encourage you to try it. I have no idea what it will or won't do for you, but I know that for $15 for a week's supply, I hear every day what a miracle that's been for people. So it's worth trying and just seeing what it may or may not do for you. And with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. If you don't mind, my brother wanted to share his story real quick, and I want to share mine. If you need to go, you're welcome to. There's some cookies and milk and water back there. But, my sister-in-law was diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 2, depression, anxiety, and my brother has just a quick story to share about that.
Yeah, my wife couldn't come down with me from American Ford. She's taking care of the kids, but just real quick, who knows what Al-Anon is? Al-Anon? Okay. Al-Anon is basically, there's a person who is an alcoholic. They go to AA. But when an alcoholic person goes through life, they like to leave collateral damage. Basically their family, their kids, their friends, their associates. Those people go to Al-Anon because they've been damaged by this person. So my father-in-law is an alcoholic, and my wife has gone to Al-Anon a couple times. And the father is designated as what they call what's the word? A qualifier. He's the qualifier that allows her to go to Al-Anon. So if there were an Al-Anon type organization for families of depressed with bipolar people, I would be in that group. Uh, So I'm kind of an all-in-on of a person who's been diagnosed with bipolar 2. Now, bipolar 2 isn't quite as bad as bipolar. They don't cycle as fast, and their manias and their depressions aren't quite as deep. But my wife, she says even from junior high and high school, she had episodes of deep depression. And it's interesting how people with mental issues, depression, anxiety, when they're out in public, they can sometimes muster up the ability to make people think that they're okay. But once they go back inside their home, it's like, you know, the guard goes down and they relax and then they feel depressed. And so when I was dating her, I had no idea. There were some hints, actually, there were some hints that there were some issues, but you know, I was too much in love with her. It's nothing. But once we got married and the blinders came down, I mean, there were some serious issues there. She would start something because she was on a high and then drop it and never get it done. And me, completely logical, I'm thinking, wow, you know, is she lazy? Can she not see that she started this? You know, and so there's that stigma of mental issues is a really deep and complex issue. So as we started having kids, you know, those depressions and anxiety issues became more and more more extreme, I should say. And in order to deal with the depression, a lot of times she would just go to sleep, and she would go to bed early and wake up later, just enough time to do the very basics to go to work and then come home and go back to bed. And when she wasn't working, she was in bed. It was just her little safety net. And so, you know, mental issues leave a lot of collateral. I mean, a lot of people end up getting divorced, but I couldn't do it. I loved her, but I just didn't understand what was going on. So, after our third child, she decided to try natural healing. She bought these books and read all these different things. She had a whole protocol of these different vitamins and supplements and minerals and colloidal silver and just a ton of stuff. And it helped a little bit, but not a lot. It didn't really cure anything. So she kind of stopped that and went through another depressive episode, and she finally went to a psychopharmacologist. Psychopharmacologists can address the psychological issues, but they can also prescribe drugs. And started her on medication. And the medication does two things. It kind of takes the load off, but it also takes the top off. You know, so you're kind of in this no man's zone. You don't have your full capacity to think, but yet you're not feeling totally depressed. And there's other side effects. And my son started showing signs of anxiety. And unfortunately, he found this little plant that kind of helps alleviate some anxiety issues. And we weren't too happy about that. We looked around, we were in a small town, we lived in Carmel, California, gorgeous place. But it's a very hippie, bohemian place to live. And we approached the families, the parents of the boys that he was smoking with, and they were like, well, yeah, we smoke with them. So we were like, well, we can't have this, so we just kind of upped. We sold my business, and said, we're getting out of here. So we sold my business, which was difficult. Moved to Southern California. We had some family, a little bit more support. And she still maintained, she went and found another psychopharmacologist and went there. And so I started reading on bipolar depression, anxiety, and I started seeing all the negative side effects it was having on my wife. It was like these blank stares sometimes where she just wasn't quite there. And one of the books that I really enjoyed is I found this book called Choice Theory. And it really talks about a person's ability to make choices, but she would have none of it. She was totally with the medication. Medication was the way for her. She had she didn't want to leave or even look at medication because she had tried the natural way. So now she was on medication. At least it's taken the bottom off. She didn't like the fact the top was gone, but she was getting through life. And so we sold our business, we moved to Southern California, did a little bit of real estate, and we decided to quit doing that. And we decided to move to Spain for a year. So we moved to Spain for a year with the proceeds from the sale of the business. We'd always wanted to live in Spain, so we just decided to take that opportunity. And in Spain, you can get medication without a prescription. So, and it was like $10 a bottle. So we knew we were only going to be there for a year, so every month she would go in and she would buy 2 months of medication and put 1 bottle in the suitcase and use 1 bottle. Next month she would go buy 2 bottles, put 1 in the suitcase and use a bottle. So when we came back from Spain, she had about a year's worth of medication. We got it for a really good price. But there were these side effects of which she would have. She still would want to sleep, not because she was depressed, but because the medication was like wearing on her. It just made her groggy, and she just had to sleep. The other thing I tell people is she she suffered from night terrors and bad nightmares all the time her whole life. She would see these spiders coming down. Sometimes she'd wake up and the spiders were still there, and they're big ones. And I could get her to wake up. And so she was prescribed another medication to take that away, and it put her into a different kind of sleep every night. It would, I don't know if it relaxed her muscles or tensed them up, but she became a snorer. I mean, a really bad snorer. And I wouldn't go to bed till like 1 or 2 in the morning because I'm a light sleeper, so I would have to just like be dead before I'd even lay down so I could get some sleep. So that went on for a year, for about 3 or 4 years of this snoring. She doesn't like to be around when I tell her that story because women don't like to be known as snorers. It's the guys, right? So we come back from Spain, and it's been about a year, and she's about 2 weeks away from running out of medication. And so she starts titrating herself down so she can hang on to that as much as she can, because she knows that medication here is about $150 to $250 per bottle. She has on like 3 or 4 different medications. And we were paying for it in cash because we didn't want it to hit our insurance, because once it hits your insurance, you're labeled. And I've always been self-employed. When we try to get on new insurance, it would be impossible to get on new insurance. We paid cash for all of that. So she was like 2 weeks away, and this lady that lived just around the corner knocked on her door. And she goes, I don't know why, but I just feel like I needed to come over and share this product that I have, that my son has been using. And it was the Empower Plus. And she was supposed to go to the girls, help with girls camp that week. And she decided to just go ahead and just jump in the water and say, oh, can we try it? So she decided to keep that 2 weeks of medication in case this didn't work. And she went through girls camp with no problem. No anxiety, no depression. She came home, and she never even told me she was taking this. She just kind of did it on her own. And I can't say that I really noticed it right away, because I mean, I just kind of have gotten a path where I just kind of did my own thing, and she was just kind of there. But the way I kind of found out about it is it wasn't until Thanksgiving that, so she'd been taking it for 4 months. On 2 days before Thanksgiving, well, it was a couple weeks before, she agreed to have Thanksgiving at our house, which we've never done before. Because she's always been super anxious about having people over at her house. And like 2 days before, she starts preparing for Thanksgiving. She got her china out, cleaned it, polished all the silver. I mean, she worked for like 2 days straight, and I kept thinking, okay, so when is she gonna crash? When is she gonna go lay down? You know? And then Thanksgiving came, and she was up early in the morning and working all day and cleaned up. And I'm thinking, wow, this is incredible. So tomorrow she's just gonna be in bed all day. And there's when she got up. I was like, what's going on? And she goes, well, I've been on this, then she finally told me that she's been buying this and been taking this for about 4 months. And then I go, well, that's incredible. A couple weeks later, she finally decided that, you know, I've done so well on this that I think we ought to sign up and maybe help other people with this. Because we've always been multi-level marketing. But I've seen her completely change. She's a completely different person. And my daughter also started suffering from anxiety last summer, and she started giving it to my daughter, and I didn't know about it. But my daughter confessed to her. And I kind of noticed that she would kind of walk around with her fist just always kind of clenching like this. So she put my daughter on it, and my daughter's, she's a singer, so now she sings everywhere. And she like has this opera voice. It's like, she'll be standing right next to her. She'll like break out in this song, and you're like, whoa, do that in the other room, or step back. But she's just been doing phenomenal with it. And so I've been doing a lot of research on it, because I'm kind of an analytical guy. And I just found some really interesting stuff on this. And like Joe said, I mean, there's 26 studies that have been done. I have all 26 studies if you want to look at them. I've read all 26 studies. They're just incredible what they've been able to do with them. But then I went a step further and did a lot more study on what Joe was talking about, the mineral depletion. And back 100 years ago, the farms grew the crops and had the animals. You know, so they grew the crops, they cross-fertilized with the animals, they grew multiple crops, and so the mineral in the soils were constantly being turned around and turned over. But now with corporate crop growing, the crops pull the mineral and the vitamins from the ground. And so unless they put them back, they're just being depleted. And nowadays, again, they only fertilize with what they call the NPK fertilizer, which is your N being your nitrogen, your potassium, your phosphorus, and your potassium. So those three minerals, or vitamins, they stay pretty consistent. But all the other ones, especially the minerals, they've been pulling the minerals out of the soil, and they're not putting them back. And so they've been doing a lot of studies, and just very interesting studies. And I'm not going to talk too much more, but I mean, just you know, if you read the title of some of these, mineral depletion of foods available to us as a nation from 1940 to 2002. It shows a drastic decrease in the minerals and vitamins in the soil. And then this one's really neat in that there have been hundreds of studies done of how specific minerals, when you lack specific minerals, the mental issues that it can lead to. You know, it shows as this little diagram with these cross-sections of the mental issues, ADHD, anxiety, depression, bipolar, and the minerals that you need to have in order to avoid those. The chromium, copper, iron, iodine, potassium, magnesium, you know, and it's just really interesting to me. Mineral nutrients depletion in U.S. farms and range soils, historical changes in the mineral content of fruits and vegetables, and it shows how the mineral contents have gone down significantly. Changes in USDA food composition data for 43 garden crops, and it shows how each garden crop has been decreasing in the last 50, 60 years. America's vanishing nutrients, and this is the one that I really like, and this is kind of why I'm taking Q96, is that food alone may not provide sufficient micronutrients for preventing deficiencies. Okay, so there's been studies done that, you know, you can eat as much as you want, you think, oh, I'm gonna eat vegetables and fruits, you're still not gonna get the nutrients that you need nowadays because it's just not there. You would have to eat a 4,000 calorie, I did this little thing on a spreadsheet, you'd have to eat about a 4,500 calorie diet in order to get all the minerals and vitamins into you that you need, because it's just not there. So I say I take it because I want to have healthy ignorance. In that, if you think of your good decisions and your bad decisions, think of a little quadrant here. You have good decisions, bad decisions. Good results, bad results. You can make good decisions of what you're going to eat, and you have some good results, or some bad results for some reason or another. And you make bad decisions, and some people can make bad decisions and still have good results. There was an article of a 104-year-old lady, and she said that did you read that?
Dr. Pepper?
Yeah, 3 Dr. Peppers a day. That was her secret. Some people can just do that, but most people that make bad decisions get bad results. And if you make good decisions, you'll never know what those bad results will be. You're completely ignorant of what the bad results could possibly be because you didn't make the bad results. So I call that my healthy ignorance. So there's been some studies on Alzheimer's disease and how minerals and vitamins can help. And yes.
Have you heard anything about autism?
Yes. Autism is very difficult. Autism has, you actually need to start with something else before you take this.
Oh, you do?
That's from my studies. I've been really researching autism because I have some very good friends with some autistic kids. And I'm trying to get to the point where I can actually make some recommendations. But there's actually a procedure that I think they need to take first before they take this.
Cleansing, possibly?
Chlorine dioxide. I don't know if you've ever read about CDS and MMS. And I found out about MMS through Doug Hogue, who Joe had mentioned. Doug Hogue is the president. And Darren Hogue. I was talking about Lyme disease and who they had helped. He referred me to someone who they had helped with Lyme disease. And I called her and she said, well, you first need to take MMS before you can take this. Which stands for Miracle Mineral Supplement. And Miracle Mineral Supplement is made from chlorine dioxide.
Does that detox the body?
It detoxes
The
the body.
metals?
Yes. You have to cleanse it first. And the CDS is a oxidizing agent. And if you take this, there's too many antioxidants in it, and they counterbalance each other. So neither of them will work if you take both of them together. So I can talk to you more later if you want to know more about that. But I'm really researching that, and I've just ordered some stuff because I want to try it on some people that I know first before I get too much into it.